Show, presented by Clean Slate Treatment Facilities. Download the show on podcasting apps, Spotify, radio.com, iTunes, Stitcher, and Apple. Presented by CLNS Media Network.
Wait a minute. I'm not from I'm Rocky Marciano, man. Brockton, Massachusetts. I don't even know what installment this is. I don't know how many we've done so far. I think maybe like 7. 8 here at 8. I think it's 8 at Facebook Live. Yep. Like I missed Mike Tyson. Welcome to another edition of the Frogman Recovery Show. Welcome, everybody. Welcome.
The intro always gets me.
I'm still stuck on Mike Tyson.
Yep. I'll never. That Mike Tyson part is just so random. Mm-hmm. You know, like we do an addiction show, and all of a sudden we're talking about Mike Tyson.
Well, I think he had his
he had his issues. I think that's what we were talking about, like celebrities or athletes or whoever who's had issues with drugs and addiction. So, like I said on the intro, welcome to another edition of the Frogman Recovery Show, brought to you by Clean Slate, located on 170 Main Street. But you can go to cleanslatecenters.com, and they will give you all the info you need to any of the clean slates from anybody. If you're watching in Florida, if you're watching somewhere around the world, in Australia or wherever.
You can call
833-505-HOPE.
Hope. Yeah. Okay. Good.
I remembered.
Look at that. We're on point today.
Yeah, man. Like I remember WCAP. I would forget.
I'd be scrambling on my phone like I should know this.
I forgot the number. But
try working for like a dozen different outlets and trying to remember what frequency and what show and what phone number. And
I remember doing this for the first time. It took me a little while because I almost say like. No, the WCAP stuff, you know, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not there.
My producer on Sirius this weekend played a song as a return that I used as a theme for another show, and my mind was like,
on that show.
My mind was like, all of a sudden, wait, we're not doing that show.
Hey, are they hiring? I need to find something. Yeah. We were just talking outside, but either way, we got Beth from Clean Slate calling in. She is a counselor.
She's a licensed alcohol drug counselor that I work with in a couple offices. She's been in this specific community for a long time and has some great experience. Figured we could open this up. She's got some stories to tell, and she could talk about what she does in the treatment.
Does she just focus on addiction, or does she do...
Yeah.
Because addiction... Yeah, but there's mental health part of it.
Yeah, there's a piece of it.
Is it separate, you think? I could ask her, but is that separate?
We can definitely ask her how she plays in the spectrum. And if
anybody else has any questions for her, make sure you call in.
Yeah,
wait a minute, they can't call in.
Oh, she's on the phone. That's cool. You can throw something in the comments. Yes. We'll read them out there. I know that there's a few folks that like to go in there and leave us some stuff.
Yeah, leave a comment with any questions you have for her while she's on the phone, and we can ask her the question for you, and then you'll get the answer.
Yeah.
But yeah, like... Because the mental health and the addiction
they go hand in hand.
They go hand in hand, but is it separate?
Yeah.
Does that sound stupid?
She focuses on, like, she works in the alcohol and drug counseling, so she handles the addiction issues. But if you have someone that needs more, like if you have someone that needs more medication or has like an underlying severe anxiety issue, which we see a lot of that stuff, that's kind of outside of her scope. Yeah. But she can help people talk through triggers and recovery barriers and kind of mending personal relationships.
I want to. You know what? I want to throw this out to the listeners from the podcast. If you're listening from the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, you know, go to clnsmedia.com and you'll find us anywhere on the podcasting apps. I want to throw this out there. What can we do to make this show even better? Like, out there, ideas of topics or things that we could do to get the listeners engaged more or the viewers engaged more. I would like to know that.
Yeah,
if there's any ideas people have, like, or topics you would like to talk about.
Yeah.
I'm trying to look for more ideas and stuff, because it's only so... I mean, we've been doing the show for a long time now. I mean, there's only so many times you can keep talking about the same things, right. and I just think that maybe some ideas from the listeners, that people that are in recovery or know somebody in recovery, or if you are streaming online looking for different podcasts to listen to, and then all of a sudden you come up to mine and you're not even an addict, but you're wondering if there's any ideas out there.
What I think this show has done well at is reaching people that are in recovery or going into recovery the first time, I feel like the show really speaks to people that have lived it. That's why if we open this up to folks that have been through the process or are at one stage or another, that's who I like to hear the stories.
I would like to know how people feel about the show. If it's helping, I just would like to know that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Just for peace of mind. Not even just peace of mind. I just want to know if it's helping people.
Right.
Not to toot my own horn. Not to, even if it's just one person that's gotten help from watching the show.
Well, I know that. So we have had patients come to us through the show that hadn't reached out to us.
Phone call
in the
or
past.
Beth? Oh,
Beth's on the line.
Beth's already calling. Yay!
Look at that. She's on time. Oh, Beth's never on time. This is wow. Let me write this crap down.
Is it exactly that time? What time is it exactly? 12:15. Look at that.
12:15. We should mark this so I have it on video that Beth was on
is she
time
late for work?
something.
Is she late for work?
Is she late for work? It depends on what we set her start time as, but
man.
for
I
a
make
9
my
o'clock day.
entrance, is what I like to say.
She makes the later you are, the bigger the entrance is.
That's right. Give me wrong.
Same.
So, Beth, I don't know if you got a chance to listen to us chatting earlier, but we were looking forward to you calling because there was some questions about what do you do? So, as a LADAC, as a licensed alcohol drug counselor, what do you talk about? And then there's a couple of the smaller things we wanted to get into, but keep in mind that the folks listening to the show may not know what a LADAC is. They might not know your role in a person's recovery, and they might not know how you can help them and what the difference is between what you do and what a mental health specific. I mean, I know this is mental health with a subset of addiction, but like if somebody came to you with an underlying depression, like how would you treat them with that? There's a lot of stuff. We have some time, and I hope you have some time.
I do.
And we can kind of go from there. So you want to start out just letting us know, what you do.
Sure. So I am what they call LADAC. It's a licensed alcohol and drug counselor. And basically my role is to help with any substance abuse-related issues. I'll go kind of right into the difference between like a LMHC, like a licensed mental health counselor. So a lot of times I actually recommend that people have both. So as much as they're seeing me for counseling-related issues, if they have maybe some deep-rooted trauma or are really struggling with, increased major anxiety, depression, stuff like that, I always recommend them to go to outside therapy. Because my specialty is substance abuse, their specialty is more of the anxiety, depression. And as much as I can touch upon that, I feel like I'm not doing them enough service for some of those issues as well. So I think if somebody does suffer from mental health and substance abuse, it's good to kind of tackle both ends with somebody who specializes at both aspects.
Mm-hmm. So if somebody was to come up to you and ask you what they can do, like say if their relationship is kind of hitting a rough patch together, whether they're addicts, both of them are addicts, or they met in going to meetings. What would you tell them if that was a part of the issue of their addiction? If they wanted to try to mend the relationship?
With any struggle that somebody's going through, I usually try to find out what role substance abuse plays in it. So, for instance, the example you gave, if a relationship's struggling, usually I try to find out, first of all, if both people are in recovery, if both people are actively using, like where kind of the situation stands. And a lot of times we talk about, where there are underlying issues that maybe brought on the substance use, or did the substance abuse bring on underlying issues. So a lot of times with any struggle, it's really finding the root of it. And sometimes it's not a clear line. Sometimes it's very kind of interwoven. But a lot of times, if there's struggles and there's, arguments, or whether it's with a parent, whether it's with a spouse, like I said, finding that underlying issue, finding the role that substance abuse plays into it, And then a lot of times we start talking about things like anger management, effective communication, coping skills, making sure that you have an outlet, somebody to talk to outside of your friends and family, such as counseling with me or outside therapy, so you have a safe place to talk. Coming up with, relapse prevention planning. If, arguments or distress at home, if that's a trigger for somebody. So, it's definitely individualized, but it's really finding out the root of it, what substance use plays into it, and then coming up with, like I said, either effective communication skills, anger management, kind of wherever it takes us from there. And like I said, that kind of goes with any struggle somebody's having.
Yeah.
Another issue that, or I shouldn't say issue, another part of the counseling aspect that I provide is really, focusing on one of the very first things with somebody is a relapse prevention plan. A lot of times, right in the beginning, if somebody is, coming into us and either very new in recovery, or sometimes they're coming into us and they have very recently used, it's really honing in on helping them identify, getting right to the root, people, places, things. Like, what are some people right now that you need to perhaps not have in your life? Where are some places you shouldn't be going? What are some things you shouldn't be doing? And on top of that, we always go a step further. In recovery, everybody always focuses on people, places, things you need to avoid or remove from your life. But when I'm talking to somebody, and first of all, they've removed their substance of choice, and that's almost like a mourning process. That's been their go-to. That's been their comfort. That's been what they seek out. That's what they've spent most of their time either using or seeking or whatever it is. So that's a huge hole that's left in their life. Now you're saying, okay, now we got to remove all the friends you've been hanging out with that are using. You can't go all the places you've been going.
That's a big
So
adjustment.
Basically, you have to change everything about yourself.
Yeah, that's tough.
Absolutely. They don't even know kind of which direction to go. And a lot of times I'll say, what do you like to do? What activities, hobbies? And a lot of times people say to me, I don't use to kind of sneak back in. So we really work on, for instance, I encourage a lot of people if, working out an exercise, and that's a good outlet for them. We recommend like the Phoenix Gym in Lowell, which is
my wife is going there
gym.
tonight, actually.
Yeah, it's a free gym for anybody, I believe 24 or 48 hours in recovery. They have yoga, they have meetings, they have workout classes. Friday nights they have activity night there. And it's just a great, supportive
They are great. I went there once, and my foot is an issue, and it was actually pretty good. I did pretty well. It's just my foot is an issue. I'm trying to get back there to do it, but they have meetings there. My wife loves it. So
absolutely. Instead of just going to a regular gym,
we've had them on the show
like that, and it's that positive environment. It supports recovery. Their kind of motto is rise, recover, and live. So we really work on identifying, positive places, people in their life, and building that up. So that's kind of the second, usually generally, direction we head. And then it's identifying, like you had said, whether they have mental health issues that need to be addressed.
Patrick Guthrie was just saying, if using was the answer, then what was the question? What does that mean?
Oh, wow, yeah.
Like, if using was the answer, what was the question? What is? I don't get that.
It's asking you to explore why you're using.
I never thought of it like that.
What are you trying to address with your using?
Yeah. I never heard it like that.
Well, I ask people a lot of times, when they say that they're craving, they're struggling with cravings or urges or using, and I say, whenever you feel yourself kind of craving or seeking, it's not the drug you're craving. It's something else. It's something that you're getting from it.
Trying to hide something, maybe?
Are you craving, to forget and to not feel? So a lot of times I usually say, try to look beyond the drug. What is it that you're actually seeking? And then if you can kind of identify, it's not that I want to get high. It's that, I'm feeling uncomfortable with my feelings right now and I'm looking to escape. Or, I'm really anxious and I'm looking for a relief. So I try to get them to go beyond that craving and figuring out what is it that you're really seeking and looking for, because those are some of the issues that we can help. And I really focus, too, I tell people that they're struggling to kind of try to keep a journal, jot down those urges and cravings so we can look and try to find if there's any patterns.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times people look back and be like, oh, I never even realized, you know, every day around this time, or when I talk to this certain person, or whatever it is, that they're able to find any type of connection or pattern, kind of whatever tool you can come up with to help battle this beast.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a positive thing in the right direction. So we work on stuff like that as well. And I do also help with some case management. You know, if we have people that either don't have a safe place to stay, sometimes we have people that are, you know, currently homeless, or some people just come in and say, you know, I think my mass health screwed up, you know, and we can help in that direction as well.
I think that part of it is something that separates Beth from other counselors, is not all of them are going to be willing to do the case management. But if you find one that's willing to help and will work with the patient on that, hold on to them, because that's invaluable, because a lot of these guys need that kind of support, because going into it, they've lost touch with who they can help, or they're just not sure what to do. And as you know, it's kind of a web to get through for a lot of these different services, like the state insurances and all that. So I appreciate when you get a chance to do that, because it's good for the patient, makes them want to stay in the program, and it gives them a chance that if they didn't have that help, they may not stay with us, they may not stay in recovery.
And Patrick also just said it's not that you want to use, you just don't want to feel the way you feel. A lot of people can't distinguish them both.
Yeah.
So, I mean, me, I've shared on here is that, see, the first use, that when you first use, it's basically you don't know how you're gonna feel. You don't know what's going to happen. So it's really just, I was just curious, but I was already using other, like I was doing pills, and so that leads to other things, but I can't even think of a reason why I picked up my first drug ever. I just was curious. Like when I first used my Ritalin, I was young. I just was curious of what it would do.
Yeah, you're like, well, I know how I feel with this much, but what if I do a little bit more? Is that going to give me a different
But everybody's story is different, you know. A lot of people just, it's how they grew up, or so do you, when you get clients that come in and say they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
What are some things that you can help them with if they don't even know what to do?
Yep. And that happens very often. A lot of people come in and they don't want to use. I've heard so many people say, I'm exhausted, this isn't fun anymore. You know, that they've lost either relationships or jobs, or they've hit their bottom, but they just don't know how to fix it. They don't know where to start a lot of times. So I generally kind of get right down to the basics. And first of all, I always ask what they have for a support system, because nobody can do this alone.
Oh, no.
So right from the start, I usually say, do you have supportive people in your life that you can talk to, that you can turn to if you're struggling? And, you know, if they're able to identify, you know, maybe they still have their parents in their life, or they have a loved one, or, you know, they have a friend who's, you know, got a couple years in recovery that's talking to them, whatever it is. I always try to identify first support and say, you know, that's going to be your go-to. You know, when you have that 3 a.m. urge and you know, give them a phone call, help them talk you through it. So first we focus on finding some type of support. And then I really work on, you know, relapse prevention. So I'll say, you know, okay, you know right now that you don't want to use. Over the next week, you know, if you have an urge or craving, or if you're triggered, what's going to be your go-to? And we kind of start just identifying simple little things that they can make changes. Because if right in the beginning you hone into, okay, you can't talk to any of the friends that are using, you can't do this, you got to stay away from it, it can be very overwhelming. So a lot of times right in the beginning, identifying a support system and working on relapse prevention.
Okay.
Yeah,
and then kind of building from there.
Hey, Jennifer, can you elaborate on your comment? Because it says Samaritan law, Casey's law, or similar in your state?
I think what we'd asked her if she can put out something about what else would you like us to talk about. And I think that she's asking us to get into those. We can totally do that. Yeah. For sure, especially the Samaritan law part, because, you know, Beth talks to a lot of folks.
I've never really heard of that. So is that just like a Samaritan law, like a good Samaritan type thing?
So
like,
what Samaritan law is, say, and Beth will see this sometimes because somebody coming to us that's new in recovery, and they may have been with somebody that passed or was in presence of somebody that had an overdose. And a lot of times these guys are going to get terrified.
Yeah.
So they may not.
They think they're going to get in trouble.
They're going to get locked up because they were there. The Samaritan law does is it protects the witnesses, essentially, or the people that are with the person's overdosing.
It should anyway.
It should.
Yep.
But in the past, if somebody overdoses and you're there, now all of a sudden you're eligible, I guess.
So
for
before
charges.
this Samaritan law, you could get in trouble for helping somebody, or they're just afraid that that's going to happen.
They are, because if you're in the presence of drugs, the law can be like,
True.
hey, you shouldn't be there.
Or some
whatever
people work
They don't
at
really know
work.
that you weren't really with that person.
They just know you're there and the drugs are there, so therefore, there you go. But now that this law has been put out there because there are too many people dying.
Yeah.
So now
Yep.
what happens with Beth is somebody will come to her and they will tell these stories where I was with my cousin and they overdosed and I got scared, or I was with my brother. We hear that a lot. So she has to, and our providers also explain, there's something else out there to help so that this doesn't need to happen again.
So Beth, does that happen a lot? Like, can you
Absolutely. Especially people
speak on that?
kind of new in recovery, or they're still kind of in and out. Unfortunately, the overdose rate, as you know,
Yep.
actually the overdose death rate for the first time in a while went down.
I looked it up this morning. Yeah.
But the overdose rate has gone up, and I think that the death rate's gone down because of things like the Samaritan's Law, where people aren't afraid to call anymore, and things like Narcan. But yeah, I mean, in worst case, even if you go to like a Narcan training, they say call 911, get somebody into the recovery position, and leave if they feel like they have to, but at least make the call, get somebody in a safe position, and know that help's on the way. Because a lot of times people would panic and they would just leave someone. Especially maybe if somebody had warrants and they're afraid for the police to come, like I said, if they themselves are high. So it was definitely something people struggled with, and then that was a vicious cycle because knowing that they left their friend.
Yeah.
Now we have a whole other beast to deal with.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of people that have the guilt. Well, why did that happen to my brother when that didn't happen to me? I remember specific patients telling us, because they were burying a family member, they're like, why him? Why didn't somebody just stay? And then, but in reality, that person they were with panicked and like, oh crap, we got to get out of here. And now that there's a law out there to protect those guys, this way we have less of those situations. You talked about the decrease in overdose deaths. There's been a lot of education done, and especially in this area, around using a loan, around Narcan. Distribution and administration. There's been a lot more education for the younger folks too, because they're starting. A lot of the towns are having programs to get out there and start telling people what to look for, and it's not just a silver bullet that fixes it, but there's a lot of stuff that's being worked on.
I always used a loan.
Yeah.
Always.
A lot, and that's what
A lot of people did,
Ugh.
And they're telling people now, don't, because this is what happens. Because if something goes wrong, you got nobody around.
And a lot of people don't want to use with other people because they don't want to share too. So
There's a lot of reasons why, but like if and it's harm reduction, right? If somebody is to go and if they're going to use, if there's somebody around, there's a better chance of something getting fixed if it goes wrong.
So Beth, how do you feel that not just Clean Slate itself, but the clientele, like, is it increasing? Maybe people coming in and trying to find recovery.
It definitely comes in waves. This time of year tends to bring more people out. People either are making New Year's resolutions. They're saying, okay, I'm going to get through the holidays and then I'm going to, get some help. Or you run into, if people are struggling and maybe they're, homeless or
it's too
don't have
cold
stable
outside.
housing. It's very cold out at night. And that can be a motivator. So whatever gets somebody into treatment, once you get them in there and you're able to plant some seeds, even if they don't go in for the right reason,
that's how I feel.
They might pick up something along the way.
Yeah, that's how I feel. You never know. You never know what you're going to hear. I've always gone into treatment. I obviously you don't want to go into treatment. Nobody wants to just sit in a place and be. You know what I'm saying?
Not the ideal environment.
It's not. But once I've gotten there, I've heard I'm like, I didn't even want to get clean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And here I am sitting here listening to these people, and I'm changing.
Well, you talk about treatment. So a lot of people think that the only type of treatment is a program like a residential or a detox, and not everybody needs to go to that level.
No.
I mean, sure, it's there and it works for a lot of people. But then if I have somebody that's a 40-year-old dude that works full-time supporting a family, he can't go into a residential program. This is where programs like this may be able to help out.
Hey, I'm on drug replacement therapy, and it's helping me. I have an autistic son, so it's hard. So.
And so if you had to go away
it's
for
helped
a
me
week,
for the past over 3 years now. So
well, think about it. If you had to just like, okay, guys, I'll be back in a week. You really need to spend the week focusing on you, but that's gonna be difficult to do when you have at home a lot.
I've never allowed anybody to tell me that because I'm on Suboxones that I'm not really clean and stuff. I've never allowed people to tell me that. Have you?
And I think the stigma's getting better. In
Yeah,
that
it seems like it is, but do you think that that's the case? Like people going, like when you have a client that starts going to meetings and stuff, do they tell you if they're afraid to tell people that they're on drug replacement therapy?
Yep, I've been in the field about 10 years now. And what I can tell you is probably in the last 3, I've seen a very drastic kind of turn in a more positive direction. Before it was very almost like shameful.
Yeah, it was.
I don't want anybody to know I'm on it. I worked in a residential program, and clients would come in and they wouldn't want other people in the house to know they were on it. And now I feel like, especially because so many people have lost so many friends and family to this, that they're kind of getting to the point where whatever works.
Yeah.
If you're not putting a needle in your arm, if you're not, drinking yourself into a black, whatever is going to help you live, do it.
And it's something that you can be on as long as you feel, until you feel comfortable. Until you feel comfortable in your own
no time frame.
Until you feel comfortable in your own skin, and you feel comfortable with your work life, you feel comfortable in general.
If you think about it too, this medication and this is a tool. It's not going to fix everything just because you're on it, but it'll help to fix the addiction side. But there's still going to be the depression. There's still going to be anxiety. There's still stuff. And sometimes people think that this is going to fix everything, and that's not. That's.
And Jerry,
I always say it's another tool. It's another tool to use.
It is.
To help you deal kind of with everything else that's going on. And what I love about Clean Slate and the medication-assisted treatment, everything is so individualized.
Yeah.
There's not a set, like, okay, you come in and you're on this dose, and you do this. It's completely individualized to the client. And that's how it needs to be, because there's no, one path for anybody. What works for someone is not going to work for somebody else.
Exactly.
And to try to push what works for one person on someone else, it's not effective.
That's why when you're trying to find people that you try to find people you want to be around that kind of have the same, views. Yeah, like you said, same sort of like your journey that you want to be on. You basically pick the person that you feel the journey would be great for you to be on. Your specific journey.
For the most part, everybody has the same ultimate goal.
Yeah.
And if somebody's telling you,
stay clean.
Right. And
the other stuff just is a icing on the cake if it happens. Like the step work is really meant for your soul, like to help the inside. And then
I always say everybody should do step work, whether you're.
I say the same thing. I say the same thing.
Everybody can benefit from it.
Oh my God. If people, I'm telling you right now, that's funny, Beth, because I say the same exact thing. People that don't even use drugs and aren't in recovery, but everyday normal people, if they were to just read the step book and answer these questions, it would change their lives, especially people that are depressed, or if they're they don't know why things are happening to them, or they don't know why, whatever the case may be. You'll be able to find out a lot of things about yourself if you
working on yourself. It's self-care.
Yep.
Yeah.
I talk a lot about self-care with clients. That's kind of another focus of mine. When people are in active addiction, they're not taking care of themselves. They're not sleeping good. They're not eating right. They're not having healthy relationships. They're not going to the doctor. They're not taking care of, any of those basic needs.
Nope.
somebody gets clean and sober, it's really focusing back on self-care, because a lot of times, again, it goes that people don't know where to start. And it's really getting back to, knowing your limits, finding a balance. Because, even with people, when they're transitioning to go back to work, that's another time where we really start to focus on self-care, because a lot of times somebody in recovery, they're out to prove themselves. They're like, I got this, I'm doing good.
Yeah.
And they'll work, 60 hours, and they won't say no, and they'll take on all
They'll
the
stop going to meetings. And they stop doing the same things.
The focus slowly starts to get away from recovery.
I'm not going to lie. I mean, I don't go to a meeting every night. I probably should go to more than I do, but I have people that I can talk to, or I've been at this for so long that I know what I need to do. If I'm going to use, I'm going to use. It's just the way. Like I said, I've been at this for a very long time, so I kind of know like the ins and outs on addiction. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, is when people start blaming other people or blaming this, it's nobody else but me. I choose to do all this stuff, not anybody else. So that, because you get that probably too, right? Like you get people that blame when you're new. You blame other things for why you did what you did.
Yep, when people are trying to kind of navigate through.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And even with meetings, just to kind of touch base back on that, I always tell people, if they're going to be doing meetings, to, make sure that they find meetings that they like.
Yep.
If you find meetings that you look forward to going to, that you enjoy it, that, you have built support systems in it, those are the meetings you're going to be more apt to go to. So I always tell people, go to a bunch of different meetings. Find the ones that work for you.
Yeah.
So that, when you're struggling, you can say, okay, Monday night, I know what meeting I'm going to go to. Or, it's Thursday, I know a Thursday night meeting I like.
Or you can throw on Frogman's Recovery Show on the podcast.
There you go.
There you go.
Honestly, whatever works, but it's finding what works for you that's going to keep you motivated and that you're going to follow through with.
Yeah.
And that's a huge part of it, because in the beginning, learning everything and navigating and becoming self-aware and getting the meetings down, the support, that's all great. But if you don't use it, it's not effective.
Now, Beth,
so it's great to put it all into place, but the follow-through and motivation are important too.
Yeah, that's the thing right there, is motivation is hard. Motivation's hard for, I think, a lot of people, not just addicts. That gets me.
Motivated.
That gets me a lot of the times, is motivation.
Well, can I ask a question that's occurred to me over the last few weeks of doing these shows? We talk about dual diagnosis, and there's the addiction to the drug or alcohol or whatever it is, and there's the underlying causes of it, the psychological causes of it. But beyond that, what happens is there's a psychological aspect to addiction, and outside of dealing with the physiological aspect of it, how the drugs create an addiction, how do you treat simply addiction separate of the drugs? Because that's an additional psychological problem, isn't it? Even when you're clean, even when the drug is no longer pulling at you, there's still a psychological aspect to the addiction, isn't there?
Absolutely. And I think that comes down, was that question for me?
Yes.
Go.
Okay.
Yes, please.
We can all answer it, but the question was just,
I jumped right into it, and I'm like, okay.
hey, you're the guest. You got it.
Right. No, definitely. Like you said, everybody's path's very different. Whatever brought them to this place, everybody has their own story. So, for instance, we do have, clients that'll say, I've never touched a drug in my life, and all of a sudden, a year and a half ago, sometimes we'll say, somebody fell and hurt their back, and it started with pain pills, and then all of a sudden, now they're addicted, and it wasn't that there's past trauma or history or anything like that. So, yeah, if you get people that come in here and they're not dual diagnosed, they don't have the mental health aspect of things, first of all, the beginning is kind of the same. It's addiction is addiction, and it's working on who's your support system. Who's going to be the one that, you can reach out to, when you are struggling with those urges or cravings. On top of, relapse prevention planning, same thing. When you do have urges or cravings, what are some activities that you can do to distract yourself? Is it meditation? Is it, whatever? Finding out what works for that person. So I think when you have a dual diagnosis and there's mental health aspects to it, you go beyond that. And like I said, we reach out, we refer out to either a therapist, or we deal with the anxiety, depression. But addiction's still addiction.
Yeah.
And if they're addicted to a substance, it is, relapse prevention, support, identifying triggers. It's kind of that same thing.
We talked a little bit about, in one of the shows we talked about Vivitrol, because there's people that will say that you can use Vivitrol in other addictions other than alcohol and opiates. So say somebody is a gambler, right? And you get that high from chasing the win over, so it's a different type of addiction. It's still an addictive behavior. But the Vivitrol medication, the naltrexone, can go in there and actually block that reward system. So you're in this. If you look at addiction, there's research out there, and any kind of addiction, and also if like overeaters, that also could be for people like that, because it's the same reward sensory or reward sensing blocking behavior.
Wow.
So it's interesting. I mean, it's if you look at it like Lou had asked about, like you treating addiction. If you see the not just opiate addiction, but the addiction in general. There are people who will say that that's something that you can use for that kind of thing. And then there's the whole personality thing. Like if somebody
the addiction
may just
is in you.
They may have an addiction personality. And maybe something in there that just causes them to become addicted, or they need to have that repeated. What's the word? Satisfaction?
We actually get that a lot because
addictive personalities,
somebody will get the drugs under control, but now they're gambling. Or they're
switching.
addicted to sex, or whatever it is. So sometimes it's just replacing one with another. So then again, it's really working on the underlying causes.
And that's where step work comes in. Like, I seriously, the step work would help with. Why is it that when I get paid, I'm gonna spend all my money on gambling? Like what makes me do that? And step work brings that out. It really does.
What gets difficult with step work is a lot of different treatment organizations and a lot of step groups, they don't talk. It's almost like groups that are like ours, that work on the science, the medication piece. Sometimes they don't have the best relationship with, like you had talked about earlier, with faith-based groups and the step work. But what really is the best is if they can mingle. If you can have someone that does both, because now you're handling the same problem from a couple of different ways, different fronts. But what becomes a barrier for a lot of people is the two treatment modalities don't jive. Like for whatever reason, like if you go to a step meeting that tells you you're not clean because you're on Suboxone, you're like, well, shit, am I really clean? They said I wasn't. But you're not using heroin. But
exactly.
You know what I mean? And that can be conflicting for people. What we try and do is just try to let people know, like Beth had said earlier, as long as you're not putting the needle in your arm, as long as you're staying clean, as long as you're making your life better, you're winning. Then you're doing better.
I'm not stealing from my family, selling my own stuff. I'm not neglecting my son. I'm not neglecting anything. My duties. Then,
Yeah, everyone has their opinion, but it would be so much easier if everybody got along. If everybody just kind of worked together and just understood that we're really trying to help that person.
Just listen
like I said, the ultimate goal is the same.
Yes, exactly. Very much.
Just listen to Bob Marley.
Yeah,
just listen to Bob Marley. He just wanted everybody
he could be the intro.
He just wanted everybody to love each other. That's all.
We'll have him come on with his. I don't know if they let him in the building though. Maybe cloud all around him.
Yeah,
but
I think we'd let Bob in.
So Beth, what's I don't have any more. Do you have any more questions for her?
Well, you talked a little bit about looking for relapse prevention plans, but how do you help somebody when they present these barriers to recovery? We talk about barriers all the time, and what do we do to get around them? What if somebody presents to you? How do you help them get through these? Or what's a tactic you'd use to help somebody find these answers?
Sure. So if somebody comes with a barrier, for instance, I don't know. Give me an example.
So it could be housing or a financial situation.
Sure. My biggest thing with any type of barrier is, first of all, education. For instance, for someone that's struggling with housing, a lot of times there might be resources out there that they're just not even aware of. Nobody is choosing to be homeless. If they knew that there were options that were feasible, chances are they would have already taken advantage of that. So it's really working on, okay, so this is what I know in this area. There's this option. For example, for housing, I often refer people to community teamwork and Lowell. CTI. They have a couple different programs that help people that are homeless get stable housing. If it's an emergency situation, I'm going to get them a list of shelters in the area. I'm going to work on getting them maybe into a program if they're at that stage. Whatever it is, just giving them education, resources, and options. If the barrier is something more along the lines of, I don't know, maybe they're still in a house with somebody who's using, and they have it in their face all the time. It's really working on relapse prevention, alternatives, and again, if it's a situation that they can't get out of, it's figuring out, okay, if you are triggered or if this, what's going to be your go-to. So a lot of it is really just individualized, but education, resources, and sometimes just listening, to be honest. Sometimes if people are struggling, just being an ear.
I call it an exorcism.
People leave my office just saying, oh, I feel so much better, and I haven't solved anything. I've just listened.
Yeah, they sort of solve it on their own.
In a way.
And, just by talking it through. And then when you hear the story come out, it's like something clicks.
It's like a light bulb goes up.
It's like, oh, crap, look at this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Jerry, our third host, wonderful third host, brought up IOP, SOAP program, a great too. Structured outpatient. What is that again? SOAP. It's
SOAP. Structured Outpatient Addiction Program.
Yes, that's it. I knew it was that. Okay.
Well, those are great alternatives. Again, a lot of times someone thinks, well, I have to go to a residential. This is for that person that can't or isn't going to. So they have a 40-hour program.
Outpatients,
And actually, one good thing in this area, a lot of people, when I mention SOAP, they struggle because they're like, yeah, but I work. Because most SOAP programs are during the day. Arbor recently started a evening SOAP program out of Woburn. It's 5 to 8 o'clock at night. So that really helped a lot of people who can't commit to the daytime hours every day. They have an evening option, which we don't have a lot of those available. So.
I think it would be a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, that's great.
For people that work,
needs more.
Makes sense.
I was surprised, not really surprised, but when I first signed on Clean Slate, I didn't really understand anything about this. So what kind of folks are going to be using the program? But you think that you start thinking the worst, but in reality, what you start seeing come in is the majority of the patients have full-time jobs, have their lives relatively together, but they're just trying to get over this. This
a
demon,
lot of people work and still use.
Yeah,
I was.
Well, they're just using.
But I was using all my money. I was delivering pizza and being a heroin addict. You don't get to save a lot of money.
You get quick cash.
Cash on hand. Afford your habit.
Yep, that's exactly what I was doing. And if I didn't work, I wouldn't be able to get it, so I had to work.
Yeah.
But there was times that I didn't work, you know. And,
you finagle things.
Yeah.
But what it is we talk about people not getting sick.
Yep.
Because now, and it's not just the fun of getting high. Now it's oh crap, I don't want to get that feeling.
Yep.
And it's the fear that we see in folks when they
once
talk about
you start calling out of work, probably like every other day, it might be an issue.
Yeah.
But Beth, I want to thank you for coming on. You've been, you've been great. Hopefully, one of these days we can get you on camera and.
We'll work on that.
We got to.
One little plug for Beth is that Beth started around the same time I did, shortly thereafter, and since she's been there, the quality of care in our specific location has increased.
Skyrocketed.
It has, and patients come in saying, "I love your program."
I can see that.
I love talking to Beth, and sometimes.
Are you kidding me? I love talking to Beth.
I know, we should be
We've been talking for the past 3.5, 4 years. I mean, come on.
But what Beth and what other laid acts like Beth do, what they bring to a program goes a long way.
Yeah.
But for me specifically, Beth has helped me professionally and personally learn about addiction and learn, how this works and what people think and kind of her side of things. And it's been awesome. It's been a great experience for me to work with you and to learn this stuff. So.
Well,
great stuff. Look at that. See, that's what that's all I want. I want to like the people I work with, and
Absolutely.
it just makes sense. You would think.
100%.
I'm getting
I'm spoiled. I'm a little spoiled. So I run a number of offices, and I have great teams in all of them. But I grew up in the Tewksbury office. Tewksbury.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in Revere, but professionally, I grew up in Tewksbury. So like, I got a chance to work with some folks that all are working towards the same goal, and everybody just in the end wants to help people. And getting a chance to learn in that environment for me has been awesome.
When you got a collective of people that are trying to just help people, that collective people usually tend to be awesome working together. I mean, I would think that people that are trying to help people, really good people, really
usually good folks,
usually cool people, and very let's say patient. All right.
No, definitely, and it spills over to the client. So many clients, to make that first step and walk into this is not easy.
Right.
They're coming in here, they're broken. People do not come and seek treatment in a place like this because everything is great and wonderful in their life.
Yeah.
They're coming here because they're broken.
Yeah, I didn't go to treatment.
And it's hard to make that step. And so many people have come in here and just say they instantly felt supported and cared for and safe and welcomed. And that's huge.
Very.
So that speaks volumes for, like Mike said, the group of staff that we have. So.
All right.
It's a good place to work.
I love you guys.
Try.
I can't believe it's already been almost 4 years almost. It's crazy.
On. Two?
Crazy?
No, longer than that, man.
I think
longer
this
than
is
that.
the third year. Yeah.
Man, I feel like it's been longer than that. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for all you do, and thank you for what you do for the show.
Thank you. Have a good day, guys.
You too.
Talk to you soon, Beth.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Yeah, that was good. That was, she gave a lot of insight on things, and I got to get some insight on the marriage side of things. But that's something that me and my wife are trying to look into, though, is like my boss at work gave me a number to call somebody.
Yeah.
To help with that. Because a lot of it has to stem from our addiction. Mm-hmm. That we've kind of lost our, like a spark type thing, and a lot of it, I was telling you the story when we come off, is a lot of it is directly due to addiction. Whether she's relapsed or I've relapsed,
how much do you have of each other, of yourselves, to give to each other?
Yeah, and
you're still putting yourselves back together.
Yep, yeah. And now, we've been trying to put ourselves back together for a little while, and I think it's time to work on that, though. But I just don't know how far gone it's gone. The way I look at it, the way I've always looked at it, is if you're marrying somebody, the vows are there. At least try everything in your power to see if you can mend those, those feelings, and try to, start over, start fresh. Mm-hmm. And then make a decision on what to do. Yeah, that's the way I looked at marriage.
Addiction has to be particularly tough on marriage because addiction demands so much of your attention and so much of your priority, which is exactly the opposite of what marriage is supposed to be about. Plus, you're supposed to take on things together, but you can't take on an addiction with someone else. It's their personal battle. I was
dope sick
You can support, but you can't take it on with them.
No, we can't. And I was just telling him before we went on, I wasn't going to say anything, but I was dope sick on our wedding. Like I was, it's pathetic, and that's addiction. That was addiction, and that's where it took me, and that I don't know how many people watch the show or whatever, or hasn't heard my story or anything, but like I've been through a ton of crap, like a lot, and obviously I'm still alive. I'm not doing the woes me's, but not everything is sunshines and butterflies and rainbows.
But you know what's admirable?
But I'm clean.
Exactly.
That's the big thing for this show. For what this topic on this show and what we stand for is staying clean no matter what, right? Like no matter what goes on in your life.
You're clean. The second thing that strikes me is that you, and I don't know how she feels about it, but you stood up and declared, "I'd like to start working on this."
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you're putting a priority into it.
Yes.
It's because that's a start. It's a great start.
And it's more me that wants to do it than trying to convince her because of all that stuff. But that's where I just want to get a mediator. So because when we're alone trying to talk to each other, it tends to get into arguments. And that's not helping the situation. So it's the same thing with therapy, and same thing with, it doesn't have to be a marriage. It can be your mother, or
Sure.
like when I was younger, me and my mom would have to go to therapy because we butted heads, or it can be a brother, it could be a sister. These type of things are, if you're an addict, these are the type of things that could make it even worse, and want to use and say, fuck it, I'm just going to use, and my marriage is going to crap, like my career is not where I wanted, and all this stuff could lead me to that, and I'm not going to let it. But that's the genesis of the show, is being able to go through these things and not use before you get a chance to even know if you can fix any of these things.
And as somebody recovery, a lot of people don't make it to that step. They're like, you know what, it was easier for me to not deal with these unpleasant feelings, these unpleasant times, and just regress and use and mask it.
I've done that in the past.
But doing that doesn't make it go away.
No, it's still there.
But it makes it worse, because now you're dealing, like you said, with the addiction side.
Yeah.
So how can you put your whole self into something when half of yourself is dealing with something else?
And that's the hit right there. Is when I've had, like Lou has asked the question, is what, like that mindset that you get in before you actually pick up the drug when you're about to relapse. And that's the hit right there, is being able to play that tape through your head before you get to that point. Right. What Mike just said is exactly what is the answer to that type of question.
It came up earlier in the show. If drugs are the answer, what's the question?
Yes.
And that's the question.
And I didn't get that question
when you're holding
before.
the drugs. Yeah.
I didn't get that question
Why
before.
am
Now
I doing
do.
this?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that right there was perfect. Like, I didn't get it at first, but now that you just said that, it's exactly it. Is why am I gonna? That's playing the tape out before you even get to that point. Like, I'm not where my career I want my career to be. My marriage is this, and my son has his issues, and I'm not whatever.
Great. Drugs going to help any of that?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's now I get that statement is.
Yeah.
What is only thing that is going to make that worse is using, and because all of it's still going to be there. And like you just said,
it doesn't just go away.
It's going to get worse because of the using. So, that is the answer to my own question, is just being able. I have to wait and see what happens. Don't do anything. Don't do anything.
Well,
if you don't know what to do, don't do anything.
Don't do that.
The other part of that is changing your priority from relieving whatever the question is, whatever your anxieties are, or fixing the anxieties.
Yeah.
And addicts just want to relieve whatever the problem is.
Yes.
And people who aren't addicts are trying to fix the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, and
that's the choice.
Exactly.
Do I escape it for a while, or do I work on it?
And that's where it's hard being an addict that's clean, or not clean, but that's clean, is you're a normal everyday person, but you also have another side. So it's not just the normal everyday person that walks around that doesn't have these issues. It's you're a normal person, kind of, but you have another personality to you. So it's like you're taking on two of you at certain times, and that is the hard part, being an addict, especially an addict that doesn't know what to do. Even in recovery. No, I'll say clean, even if you are clean. And that's
counseling is a good start.
Exactly.
We just talked with
full circle.
Maybe we can bring it right back. But there are folks out there that maybe it is specialized in both. So somebody that's going through addiction, but also there's other parts of your life other than the addiction.
Yes.
And that's what these people
not just
can help
the drugs
you
and alcohol. You have to deal with the mental aspect.
Everything,
of it
right?
too.
And there's folks out there that can specialize. Actually, I have a friend that works up in Amesbury, Newburyport. Hey, she focuses on.
Oh, really? Yeah, there you
she
go.
focuses on mostly the substance abuse side of it. However, that's just a piece of it. There's so much more that goes into it. So,
well, I think that's going to do it for us. And then I want to thank Beth for coming on and taking time out of her busy schedule, seeing some clients.
Took up her lunch period.
Yeah,
so
sorry, Beth. Sorry, Beth. But it was well worth it. We got a lot. This show will probably be the next one that goes up as a podcast, I think.
Maybe.
I think it would be. We'll see what's up. We still have a bunch that we haven't put up. So if you or anybody that wants to, if you're, say you're in your car, I say this all the time, if you're in your car just driving around and you need to listen to something and you don't know what to do that's going on in your life, put on the Frogman's Recovery Show on iTunes or radio.com right in your car, and you can listen. You don't have to watch, and when you get home, you can watch us on Facebook Live. You could do either or. You got best of both worlds. Send us a message. If anybody that you know wants to come on and share their story, whether they're an addict or know somebody that was an addict, please message us, let us know, leave a comment, and we'll see you guys next Tuesday. Jerry will be on, and he'll be bringing a special guest. Bye-bye.